Hi, I'm Angela from Axe Root Homestead. If you're new here, I have a 6-acre permaculture farm in central New Jersey, and just recently I built myself a greenhouse out of old upcycled windows. A lot of you have questions about how I put this together. I thought we would do a little tour. Let's take a look. Okay, so my farm was founded in 1775. Over the time, it's had a lot of different owners, and during that period, they have updated a lot of windows. Lucky for me, they didn't throw any of them away, and they stored them all in the old barn. And these amazing doors too. So let me show you what I did. First things first is I had to figure out what windows I wanted to use. I have a whole bunch extra that don't have this grid, but I like the look of these. And I had to figure out my layout. I went with 8 foot wide by 13 feet 2 inches long. So this is 13 foot 2, 8 foot wide deep. It does have a slope. While we don't get a ton of snow here in New Jersey, we occasionally get, a foot at a time, and it'll melt off, run down, and come scrape it if needed. These are polycarbonate greenhouse roofing panels from Lowe's. You can look at them and find them at your local hardware store. They're about 8 feet long per panel, and they run roughly 24 or 26 inches wide. I can't quite remember. So as for actually the step-by-step process of putting this greenhouse together, I had to collect my doors and windows and figure out a measurement. I started by finding a space that gets 6 to 8 hours of sunlight, and I leveled it out with a lot of compost, paver base, and paver sand. Then it was time to go ahead and put in my paving stones. I chose a grid pattern of different color stonework. Next, I created a footer out of 4x4s and cemented 4x4s in place for each corner. And then it was just a matter of filling it in with windows and framing it in as I went. The thing worth noting about upcycling windows into a greenhouse is none of them are square and all of them are different sizes. There will absolutely be gaps to fill in. For me, I had to make a couple of windows out of plexiglass in order to fill odd shapes and spaces. Finally, after the trusses and the roofing panels were installed, I went ahead and put facing where the trussings stuck out over the door, and that was it. It was just a matter of painting. This is a little muddy, real-life greenhouse, but here's a look at what it looks like on the inside. The windows are all mismatched. Some are off-white, some are white, some are wood. I think I'm actually going to leave that because I want it to be known that these are old and upcycled. This is the barn wall right here. This lattice for the akebia vines, chocolate vines, were already there, and I chose to include those. They have gravel mulch at the bottom, so they're invited to continue growing here. Now, if you look at the top, I've actually left a gap. So my header for my roofing panel doesn't start until about 16 or 18 inches between my back header piece here and the first cross brace there. These stay pretty full and lush even during the winter time, and they serve as a great source of ventilation. Even with this area open, I've had to open all of my extra vents. You'll notice it's painted black on the inside. The reason that I did that is actually because black absorbs heat. It attracts the light, and it's more likely to hold on to the sunshine. As for the outside of the greenhouse, I painted it white because we want to reflect that light. First of all, too much heat that's trapped onto the wood and trim work would be more likely to cause chipping and peeling paint, which means repainting and refinishing frequently. But the second thing is, if I can reflect the light, it's going to bounce off in all different directions and have a second chance at actually going through the window panes and into the greenhouse. Down here at the bottom, I intentionally left about a 2-inch gap between my patio pavers and my footer board. Reason being, I can sweep or wash all of the floor debris right outside the greenhouse. Greenhouse environments are notoriously prone to building up mold and mildew. Ventilation is key. If you're not going to have a fan in the greenhouse, you need to be able to open up windows on pretty much all sides or vents in order to get plenty of airflow through there to prevent mold. And this is the back of the greenhouse. We're going to open the side and the front. This is also an open window. So you can see on the sides of the actual structure, there's plenty opportunity for ventilation. Even at the top, there's a gap. And that's all in addition to the original gap that makes room for the vines. So I know what you're probably thinking. You're probably thinking, isn't that much to ventilation? Isn't it gonna get cold? I'm not really worried about it. Here's why. I can always add a heating element if I need to. But number one, A lot of people underestimate how much ventilation you actually need, even in the wintertime. No matter if it's a greenhouse or if it's a stable or a barn or a shed, you have to keep ventilation going for the health of plants and animals. Number two, I take advantage of thermal mass. This barn behind me is absolutely massive, and we don't heat the barn, but the sun sure beats on it all summer long, especially because all of the trees have lost their leaves. So that means that structure is heating up. Radiant heat, or thermal mass, is projecting heat from the side of the barn wall into the greenhouse. But the other thing is that I am in zone 7. I always thought that I was on the border of 6B7, but somebody confirmed for me today that no, I'm actually zone 7. And like I said, not that we don't get snow. We absolutely get our fair share. But the thing is, winters are getting warmer. Our time below freezing is slim, and citrus and olives in here, they actually really need to have exposure to cold. It's what helps them set buds for fruit the following season. If we plan to dip below 25 degrees Fahrenheit, that's when a heating element would be introduced. Otherwise, we're just going off of sun. That reminds me, on the corners of the greenhouse, I have lighting. That's all hooked up to solar panels that are at the top.